Why do they have the gold? Why do they have the power? Why? Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Paul.
I'm Jan.
And this is Shadow-Caste.
Welcome to Shadow-Caste.
Bienvenidos. So we got a big one today, but serious stuff.
Yeah, it's something that I've been aware of for a few years, but didn't pay close attention to it because I didn't quite understand what it was, and I didn't think it would go that far. But now we have 19 states who have passed amendments for this and are trying to call a Title 5, Article 5 convention. So that's what this is about today. What is that? Why do we want it? And how close are we to achieving it? So let's just start out with a clip right away about the case for why we would want an Article 5 convention.
Exciting.
Framers drafted the first draft of the Constitution. Its provision for amending the Constitution said Congress had the power to propose amendments to the Constitution. And then an obvious question was raised. What if Congress is the problem? If Congress is the problem, we can't count on Congress to propose the reforms necessary to fix it. And this was an obvious problem, and the framers quickly changed the draft of the Constitution to include the essential backup to protect the liberty and the democracy which they were creating. And the essential backup was you. It was the state legislatures. Because what the framers did in Article 5 is they created a second path to amending the Constitution. And that path said that if state legislatures believe it's time to act outside of the ordinary process, they have the power to compel Congress to create an Article 5 convention.
Holy shit. I mean...
So this has never been done. It's been done once, and that was when the original Bill of Rights was created.
Wow.
So it's always been in the Constitution that we could do this if we felt like the government was out of control, there was too much government overreach.
Who doesn't?
There was something that all the states or most of the states wanted that they weren't getting representation in Congress.
That is maybe the single most revolutionary minute of video that I have seen in years.
All right.
That is fucking incredible.
And most people are unaware of it.
Wow. I mean, you know something? That sounds like one of the most realistic. I mean, maybe when you get into it, we'll realize, the states are bought too, but as a non-violent solution to the tyranny that we all know we live under, this is truly a remarkable moment. I mean, I just feel like, wow, so inspiring.
And it's probably the only other way. A lot of people say the system is so broken that we cannot fix it. We got to start completely over. This is actually the legal way embedded in the Constitution that we could start over, because as you'll see in future clips here, the things that people have been wanting to call this Article 5 convention for are big things like balancing the budget and enacting term limits, not only for Congress, both branches of Congress, but also maybe even the Supreme Court, or maybe administrative branches, maybe.
Well, if it's an amendment to the Constitution, it could be literally anything.
So how do you say that? NIAID, Fauci's, 50-year reign in that. Maybe this would be a way to, rein in this excessive power that our government has over us now.
Yeah, that's I think plain to see. Right?
Let's watch the next clip.
Yeah.
Constitutional convention. This is not the sort of convention that has the power to propose a constitution or to change the Constitution. That's what we mean by a, quote, constitutional convention. The only thing an Article 5 convention can do is to propose an idea for how to fix a broken system, a system that has become corrupted, let's say, by a Congress that can't function. So I strongly support legislatures around the country creating the movement necessary to create this instance, this Article 5 convention, that could begin to give people who are not dependent upon the corruption of Washington an opportunity to think about how to fix this system.
Wow. I mean, there you have it, right? I mean, I'm not so sure the states, my experience of states has not been any better than that of the federal government. So.
Well, and we've talked about this before. The corruption has spread so far. It's like a cancer in the United States, at least. You know, other countries too. But, you know, we were supposed to be like the shining example. But it's spread, you know, it's spread to the executive branch. It's spread to the legislative branch. It's spread to the judiciary branch. It's certainly spread to what could be called an administrative branch. So yeah, it's tough. But one point he was making there is that this is not a constitutional convention. He's a lawyer, so he's making that distinction in the language.
And a Harvard
we
boy,
are not.
Which is what makes it so odd to have him on the side.
Well, there's
helping.
there are good people everywhere. They might be a minority, but there's good people everywhere. But we're not trying to redo the whole Constitution. We're trying to call a convention to make amendments in places where we think change should be made.
Right. That at least would draw an incredible spotlight. I mean, worst case scenario is that it draws an incredible spotlight on the backpedaling of the federal branches into attempting to continue to preserve their power at all costs.
Well, and here's what has happened. There have been hundreds of attempts to do this. It's never been done before, but and there's been some close ones where you need 34 states currently out of our 50 states to call the convention. So there's been cases where we've been 2 states short, in one case one state short, whatever. And what happens though is as it gets close, then Congress goes, okay, we're gonna like make our own amendment. So they see what like the
what'll placate some.
What's the word? The upsurge of will of the people wanting to change a certain thing, and so that they will do something to kind of placate them, which may not be the full effect of what people want, but
it gets the state off.
It causes people to back down.
Yeah. Well.
So let's look at the next clip.
6% of America have confidence in Congress. 6%. I want to know who those people are.
Only 6% of people in the United States have faith in Congress. He wants to know who those people are.
Wow, 6%.
Yeah, I mean, you could say only 6%, but it's like...
Oh my God, that's the worst. I mean, that if you have a 6% popularity rating, wow. Right. I had no idea that there was...
And this is an old video. This is like a 10-year-old video.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, this has been going on for a while. Oh. Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Political system is broken. Congress is dependent on its funders, not upon the people alone, as our founding fathers originally intended. In 2010, incumbent members of the House spent an average of $1.7 million on their re-election campaigns. In 1974, that figure was only $56,000. House members had to raise an average of $2,300 each and every day they were in office, holidays and weekends included, and spend half of their available time raising money. So the result is that Congress operates in a permanent campaign mode with little time for their constituents or for legislature.
Wow, nice.
So part of the broken system is that, they're constantly fundraising, and it takes such a huge amount of money. Again, this is an old video. So back in 2010, it took somebody that was an incumbent just to stay in office. This is not a new guy trying to gain recognition and get in office.
All right, let's look up what it is today, and we'll put it up on the screen.
Okay,
right?
Great
just
idea.
So everybody can see.
Yeah.
How it's changed even from 2010.
In 74, it was 56,000. That's still too much, So part of the broken system.
Well, but to see the difference in I mean, that difference isn't accounted for by inflation. You know what I mean? That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. So, what's the reason for this Article 5 convention? We want to bring power back to the states and to the people. And we don't want unelected bureaucrats in Washington making sweeping decisions that impact our lives. What is the convention? It gives the states the power to call a convention to propose amendments. It takes 34 states to call the convention and 38 states to ratify any amendments. So it would be completely in control of the states. And if 34 states say they want to call a convention, Congress has to. That is very clear language in this Article 5 of the Constitution, that if 34 states say they want it and it's passed those 34 states, Congress has to comply.
Interesting.
So we've got, it'll show later in here that 19 states have already passed this. So that's the reason it brought it to my attention. I get some some emails from these folks on the progress. 19 states have already passed, and then we've got 9 states where it's in progress. There's active legislation this year on it, and then we've got 1 state that's passed in one of the chambers, but not the other yet. So 19, 20, 29, if all of these go through.
Oh, wow.
So then we just need 5 more states.
I see a lot of the West.
It's a lot of the South, and what do we got? Arizona and Nevada. No, what's this one? Utah, and some northern states.
Wow. So looking at the numbers, maybe we can I'll put this map up too, so you guys can see this. Mm-hmm. It's. I mean, I don't know, right? Tell me what you think in the comments.
It's gaining momentum, and that's why, again, I discounted it before. It's like, I don't quite understand, and is there an agenda here, and is this good or a bad thing? But also, it just, hadn't gained this kind of momentum. But now...
But any rise up of even state rights to insist that the federal government has to start being answerable,
right?
That there's a third check and balance. I think that is a moment when we can really look to maybe some level of hope that there is some mechanism involved. I mean, wow, those founding fathers, I'll tell you that.
And there was some founding fathers that said, oh, no, we don't need this because Congress can already make amendments. And then they said, what if the problem is Congress? What's the check on Congress? And this is the check on Congress.
Bravo.
Yeah.
What a great story.
So let's move on to
movement.
Well, on a personal level, for me, the impetus was my frustration with not really having accomplished the change that I wanted to see out of the Tea Party movement. All these people.
Mark Meckler was a top organizer in the Tea Party, a popular movement started after controversial government bailouts of banks and insurance and car companies in the economic meltdown of 2008. A wave of Tea Party candidates swept into Washington, D.C. with the mission of reining in big government.
And all these people got elected, the ideas got discussed, then they went to the D.C. swamp and they were just eaten by the swamp. I was there.
Now Meckler heads a logical follow-on, a group called Convention of States Action, which is organizing grassroots campaigns in every state to push back on big government and what they see as systemic waste and corruption.
Well, bravo, right? So this is the Tea Party reincarnated, but without the power of the individual party, and the power back to the individual states to call out what is painfully obvious to everybody, which is the corruption in the federal government is so huge that it feels unstoppable.
right.
Right? Just incredible.
Again, it seems like we have to disassemble the entire system, that there's no way to fix it. It's a big problem, but this is a big solution to be able to fix it.
Oof. I mean, that's really, you start to see how the grassroots movements could take hold of states, and through states take hold of the federal government again. A real clear path.
Yeah, and I used to, like, when I studied in school, like, what's this federal versus state rights? Why does that even matter? Well, it matters when the federal government gets out of control and when states want different things from each other and from the federal government.
Yeah, yeah, amazing.
So there are some topics that have come up in all these other attempts to do this in the past. And the topics that come up in most of the states are very similar. One of them is balance the budget. And they have a really good, it's conventionofstates.com. For short, they call it COS, is this action group. I'm losing my train of thought.
We'll just
Edit that out.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. So balancing the budget is one thing, and on the website they have this thing where they're comparing. It's the numbers are so big, billions of dollars and trillions of dollars. It's so hard for the average person to wrap their head around it. So they took the budget of the United States and compared it as if it was a household budget. So if this family was earning $60,000 a year, which I guess is the average in the United States, which seems low to support a family, $60,000, then you would look at your debt, and so they're comparing this debt, to their budget and just how out of control this is. So balancing the budget has been a common topic that people want. Term limits for the legislature and the Senate, and possibly for the judiciary, for the Supreme Court justices.
All those federal court judges need.
Yes, yeah, lifetime.
Yeah.
You can get pretty comfortable in a lifetime and slack off on your job and
serve your masters,
get bought out, and all that sort of thing. So there's some common topics that have been brought up from time to time. Unfortunately, the language in the Article 5 is pretty broad and fairly vague. It's not vague that Congress has to call the convention if they get 34 states, or that you have an amendment for sure that will become an amendment if you get 38 states to ratify it. But there are other vague things about, can you call one with just one topic? Can you call it with multiple topics? That sort of thing. So there's some things that they could push back against if it came to pass. But,
sure, but they'll push back.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Yeah, and that's the next step, right, of the awakening, right, is to see the more they push back, the more transparent they are.
So let's see what Mark has to say some more. Let's look at...
Who favored national government emphasized that Article 5 gives states authority over the national government. Article 5 Convention of the States is a safe route to stopping federal overreach.
So this is just an eye-opener. And when you first started talking about it, I thought, okay, probably some small crackpot group that doesn't really stand a snowball's chance.
That's what I kind of thought before.
But 19 states already with this. Yeah. I mean, this is amazing. And to know that there's, whatever you say about the Tea Party, I love them or hate them, they were certainly reflective of a discontent that has not been satisfied in the United States with politics as usual.
Right.
And so you really have to start. I really am admiring this guy from the Tea Party that we're about to watch. That's there. Really seems like putting his talents to use.
Let me finish that thought because I found my other notes when I was talking about the main things that the states have been brought up that they want to do the Article 5 convention for. So we talked about term limits, and we talked about balancing the budget. Direct election of senators is one. Congressional appointment is another. Campaign finance, that could be a game changer if we have amendments about campaign finance. But listen to this one. I was shocked to see this one. World federal government. In 1949, 6 states, California, Connecticut, Florida, Maine, New Jersey, and North Carolina, applied for a convention to propose an amendment, quote, to enable the participation of the United States in a world federal government. Multiple other state legislatures introduced or debated the same proposal. These resolutions were part of an effort at the time to integrate the United States into a potential world government. So this is where it could go wrong.
Jesus.
And there was only 6 states, and it was back in 49, like after the war and all that sort of thing. But, yikes.
Not like that agenda isn't still,
right.
just in the shadows.
Have some legs.
All right.
Okay, let's hear Mark.
Second clause of Article 5 gives the states the power to call a convention to propose amendments. Same thing as Congress. When 2/3 of the states want to gather in convention, they do. They propose an amendment or amendments, and those go out to the states for ratification. We've never done that in the entire history of the country.
To date, 19 states have passed Convention of States resolutions, starting with Georgia, Alaska, and Florida in 2014, and more recently, Nebraska, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Wisconsin in 2022, following several years of lobbying.
Our founders recognized when they were drafting the Constitution, Congress cannot be the only body that's allowed to propose amendments. If so, we're never going to get amendments that are going to restrain the power of the government.
Key point.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be so interesting to really dig into this and start following these individual votes at the state level.
The progress, yeah.
Because you have to imagine that there's going to start becoming some very heavy counter messages coming out there. Yeah, right.
So on their website, I was a little frustrated with the website because it looks like when you log in that you have to donate. I was able to get in without donating. I don't feel like you should have to donate to, find out about it or whatever. And if you want to donate, that's great. But there is a way. So just rest assured that there's a way. But you can follow them on the website. You can volunteer. You can see, where the meetings are and, and just sign up that you support them and all that sort of thing. So conventionsofstates.com, we'll put that in the show notes.
Marvelous.
So I only have like 3 other things to say. I have 3 I want to say slide shots. That's not a word. It must be the wine talking.
But,
Snapshots, slides, whatever. So let's look at the first one that says states are sovereign. So the states can decide, is the qualification that they're not a politician? That could be as well, and all that sort of thing. So the states, get their choice in who they send.
Interesting.
The other thing is, we'll show that later, but one state, one vote. It's just a really basic slide. But every state gets one vote. So this whole thing that California is a lot more powerful than Rhode Island and stuff like that, that goes out the window in this particular case.
Oh, when they're calling a convention, one state, one vote.
When they're calling the
All states are
convention
equal.
and when they're ratifying the amendments.
Oh, one state, one vote.
Yep.
Fascinating.
And the state legislatures in the driver's seat.
Well, presumably, it means that they're the ones who...
I guess the state legislature is the one that decides who they're going to send.
To ratify their own law and to pass it.
Right. The state legislature does have to decide to pass it and be one of those states that's asking to call a convention. And I think it's the state legislature as well who's also defining the qualifications of the delegates that they send. But this could be a game changer. We have such a big problem now. It's going to take a big solution. And this is a big solution that people weren't even aware they had.
Well, I think it really does come down to who is going to get in there and start helping. Right. Because I know from the other side that there's going to be lots of help from giant corporations, right? There's going to be no shortage. Remember the documentary about Monsanto and how granular a level townships they were in there getting...
Well, and this is a problem, and this is probably a whole nother segment we should do, but there's a thing going on where Soros is putting all this money into very low-level governmental organizations, like down to city councils, state legislatures and city councils and stuff, where he's, buying people to influence his agenda.
Which would appear to be modifications to the Constitution through state.
Modifications to the Constitution, and he's also influencing people in the way that they are interpreting election laws and all kinds of other things.
Yeah.
So again, the cancer has spread to every cell practically. And the people who are against this, and the arguments they're making is that, oh, well, people with a lot of money could influence this.
Waka waka.
People with a lot of money are influencing things now.
Right.
So I don't think that's going to get worse. I think this is a grassroots thing. And the beauty of this is it's a nonpartisan thing. Who doesn't want more freedom? Who doesn't want less government? Who wants a crazy debt?
Well, it would seem like every state wants more state rights to increase their power over the federal government.
Right.
So, I think if we see this mature, it seems like a no-brainer that there's going to be 34 states signing on, because what state doesn't want?
Sorry, that just sounded a little hillbilly.
Oh.
That's a no-brainer.
Because every state wants more power, right? And so no states out there.
Well, I think every
saying,
state wants to stand up for themselves and doesn't want the government breathing down their neck and telling them what the hell to do.
yeah, and
Just like every person wants more freedom.
and the ever-growing list of compliances that the state must follow to get federal funding.
Right,
and
right.
on and on, right? They've taken over our public school system
Right.
with their agenda, and the local boards go along with it because they know that it means
There's
cuts in funding.
There's an article on there about, was it Biden? Yeah, Biden passed something, I don't know if it was executive order or whatever, defining what is a woman, which is now affecting women's rights. It's affecting how they teach gender in schools and all that sort of thing.
But
so-
does it allow Michelle Obama to run for president?
Well, we got to have a crotch check, I think.
Yeah, no, because now you can't. There's no gender, right? So now you can't discriminate.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, wasn't that what it was all for, guys?
But what I was going to say was, in that article, it said the Department of Education was created in 1980. I didn't know that. We didn't have one before.
Okay, Department of Education, 1980.
Yeah. So again,
Which
this
is-
administrative overreach too, to have somebody like Fauci and the NIH and all these organizations being able to shut the country down and tell people that they had to take an experimental injection and all kinds of stuff. This is a way to rein that stuff in as well.
Right.
That excites me.
Well, there's no end to the amount of things that need reining in.
Right.
I think it really just comes down to whether or not the war is going to become the battlefront of the state legislatures, and I think I'm not sure who's out there making sure the state legislators are not suddenly driving Ferraris around, but I think there's going to be an awful lot of manipulation going on at the state level to try to get things first of all, it almost seems like it's almost a guarantee that there's going to be 34 states that ratify this. And so then it just becomes about whether or not they use this as a tool to take control of even more of our rights. I mean, you can be sure that there are incredibly smart, evil geniuses out there who are going to be looking at this saying, okay, maybe we can't stop them from having a state ratification, but what we can do is use it to strip even more rights away from Americans while this is in the fight. So it really looks to me like we're heating up for what might be the last democratic stand.
Hurrah. I mean, I think if we can't make this work, it is a broken system and probably needs to be built from the ground up again. But the question is, has the cancer gone down so much that there's no representation of the people in the states as well as the people nationally? So
Well, but what's amazing about that, Jan, is that people watching this video, right? I mean, it doesn't take very many people to find a great candidate and push somebody into the state legislature. But I bet you what we're going to see is whatever it cost in the last state legislature per state to run and win that seat, I bet we're going to see those numbers starting to quadruple overnight, right?
but if we could get something like this passed, then we could, that this is probably the only way we could have campaign finance reform and get it to, again, with this J.D. Vance guy, they're saying he's like the new Abraham Lincoln and everybody can be president, even a hillbilly from Kentucky. No, everybody can't be president because it costs so fucking much money. And because you owe so many people.
Maybe with J.D. Vance, it's because his ideas are so incredible that when people hear them in their entirety, they are inspired. I'm just kidding. Because what do you ever hear? Politicians don't even seem to run on platforms anymore. They just get up there and they say, I ain't for abortion, right? And then they say, I'm going to close the border wall.
Yeah, but that's more detail than hope and change.
Yeah, right. And then that's it. That's your plan.
What did you promise? We can't even judge whether you delivered or not because it was so vague.
We're starting a war with Canada.
Anyway, we have a great video on J.D. Vance. Watch that one.
Yeah. And if you would give us a couple minutes and let us know, what you think. What's the Achilles heels? How could it go wrong? And maybe how could it go right? And if we dare to dream, pretty hard for me to imagine anything that could save the United States from the tyranny. But yeah, look at that. It's certainly hopeful. And if you feel the same way, tell us about it, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, in the comments, let us know what you think.
Yeah, we'll definitely mention.
Is it
some
a
of the
pipe
comments,
dream, or could it possibly work? And would you be willing to do something for it? Because we're about solutions, so this
what a solution!
Could be a solution if we could get enough people behind it.
Amazing, totally amazing. Thanks for bringing this one. This is really
welcome.
cool. Yeah,
You're welcome.
All right, guys.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.